With Newcastle's dreadful away record and the amount of points that they have dropped from winning positions, this has to be the game that a lot of us and Spurs have earmarked to go and win in this run to get us out of this mess. But it's Dr. Tottenham, isn't it? Because we said that about West Ham. We said that about Bournemouth. And we said that about Burnley. All of those teams have been on dreadful runs before they come and play us. So maybe Dr. Tottenham isn't a thing anymore. Maybe we're just bad. But this game still feels winnable to me. Newcastle are not what they were. They're having big issues on and off the ball, which we will come on and speak about. If you're new to the channel, the Ben Bowman THFC channel, rebranded today actually the name, so make sure you drop it a like if you like that. Subscribe to the channel. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments as well. We're very, very close to 20k subs, so if you could subscribe, that would I'd massively appreciate it. But let me know what you think in the comments. The lineup that you want to see, where you think we can get a Newcastle, because I think there's a few key matchups here involving Javi Simmons and Kieran Trippier, and potentially Matisse Tell and Kieran Trippier as well, coming off the bench, potentially Tell, or starting the game. I think there's an argument for both, but I also think there's an argument, I think the argument is more maybe to keep him on the bench, and we'll kind of speak about as to why that is. If you look at Newcastle, they've obviously got injuries as well as we have. Jed Spence is back for this game, which is a positive for Spurs. Destiny Udogie is out with a muscle injury or a hamstring injury. It's going to keep him out until mid-March. I think Kevin Danso obviously not back. Pedro Porro not back. There's big injuries for Spurs. Romero suspended. They've got Sarr out, Livramento out, Joelinton out, Miley out, and Anthony Gordon out as well, which probably means they will play this team. Now, Worcester played through the middle on the weekend. It might be Voltemada that might come back in, but the midfield is likely to be the same unless Ramsey kind of comes in. Tonali's not been at his best recently. Bruno G has only just kind of come back from injury, as I said, and this defensive unit doesn't necessarily look the same as it was. Lots of goals going in for Newcastle at the moment, if we kind of look where they're at. They've actually conceded the same amount of goals for us, same amount of goals as us in the Premier League this season, and they've also scored the same amount of goals as us as well. If we look at their away form in the Premier League, they are right at the bottom, right near the bottom, 16th in the league. They've conceded 16 goals away from home. They've only picked up 10 points with 2 wins. Obviously, Tottenham's home form, to contradict that, we have got the same amount of points at home as they have got away. So some very similar records going into this game. Newcastle dropped more points from winning positions than any other Premier League side this season with 16. They're underperforming their XG by 6 positions. They're not necessarily converting chances, but also they've become quite predictable on and off the ball as well. If a team sits in a low block, Newcastle find it very difficult to play through them. And if we know that Spurs under Thomas Frank do like to kind of sit back, soak up pressure. If we just move Sousa back as well, it looks like Sousa's probably going to make his debut for Spurs or first start for Spurs in this game, because we literally have very limited options unless he goes with Spence at left back and Gray at right back. But also, I would kind of trust Sousa. I thought he looked okay when he came on against Man United, and I do think that Kieran Trippier is kind of there to be got at. If we can just unhighlight Tonali and Bruno G, I think Kieran Trippier is there to be got at, to be honest. And I think having Sousa, who looks to carry the ball forward, looks to drive at players, as we saw that coming off the bench against Man United, I think he could be a potential threat. With Newcastle, though, they kind of want to get to the ball to the wide areas, and they worry about 1v1 moments. They haven't really got any clear patterns of play. It feels like their style's not really evolved that much under Eddie Howe. If teams press onto them, though, they obviously really have got the threat to hurt you. And that is why I think Spurs have got to go with the 4 at the back again in this game, because I think when we played with the 5 at the back, say if Paulinho was going to drop in there like he did against Man City and go with a 3, with Sousa kind of pushing up the 2 in midfield and play like this. If Spurs are then going to go and press Newcastle, if we just drop Newcastle back into sort of build-up shape like this, if we just drop everyone back, into kind of what they might do on the ball, building out, and we move Spurs up. Spurs' press against Man City was so disjointed, really, that it allowed for City, to play out with ease and then constantly get 2v2 situations at the back with Paulinho and Romero kind of being exposed, or Dragusin and Romero being exposed to these kind of 1v1 situations with Haaland and Semenyo a lot of the time. Because they'd either go direct, they're able to play through the middle. It was so disjointed. There was space for City to play through. So Spurs have got to get that right. Spurs have got to make sure that if they press with balance, not just like we did against Man City, where there was so much space in the middle to constantly isolate. And the thing is, if Voltemada plays, one of the centre-backs, if we go with the 3, is probably going to get dragged out. That is why I'd go with the 4 at the back, try and get the extra man in midfield, try and nullify his kind of impact in the game when he does drop deep. You saw against Liverpool in a game that Newcastle kind of dominated for the first 35 minutes or so and got their rewards with the goal for Anthony Gordon, that they were able to play through Liverpool's press and find the spare men in midfield. Liverpool committing high up the pitch, leaving space in the middle. Gordon dropping in from the striker position deep, could spray the ball out again, isolating that fullback 1v1. Mo Salah not necessarily getting back. Harvey Barnes cutting inside from the edge of the box, getting fouled here that led to a good chance from a free kick. Again, Spurs don't want to camp too deep into their own penalty area like we've seen too many times, where we can see goals from outside the box with the threat that they've got with Harvey Barnes cutting in off that left-hand side. It's not so much there in that front line other than him at the moment, because Alanga's not that kind of player. Wissa's not that type of striker. Gordon is obviously injured, but we've got to worry about that. If Spurs do commit and Newcastle can turn the ball over quickly and get Barnes into these 1v1 situations where he's isolating a fullback, he is incredibly good at driving into these spaces and then getting a shot off from the edge of the box. But also, Newcastle, as we saw in this game, are vulnerable. They're not kind of what they were at the moment. And this is why I think Javi Simmons is going to be key in this game. I think Javi Simmons has had a good record against Newcastle when he's played them. Or I'll say a good record. I think he's had some decent performances. Certainly in the Carabao Cup game, where I think Spurs were able to play through the lines and get him in the pocket where he could drive and make things happen in that final third. But you look at Wirtz here in this situation, kind of playing in off that left channel where he likes to operate, right? Sends Kieran Trippier for a hot dog. I think if you've got Javi Simmons, who likes to take players on, likes to face them up, if he's got a fullback in Sousa that's going to go round him, if he's coming in off that left-hand side, against Trippier, if we kind of drop Newcastle back into the shape that we know they kind of like to defend a lot of the time, almost a sort of a 5-4-1. So it might be Murphy, it might be Elanga. I think it might be Elanga because they might look to use his pace against an inexperienced fullback. But if you've got Javi Simmons kind of operating in these kind of pockets, right, with Sousa going round him, sort of just move everyone up. Paulinho at the base, Odebear out wide out here. Gallagher, I think it's really important to get Gallagher close to Solanke in this game as well if Spurs are going to press more effectively. But the thing is, when Newcastle have pressed now, teams have kind of just started going long against them because they know that one of Newcastle's biggest threats is kind of pressing up high and winning the ball. So teams have started going long a little bit more, which is why you're going to go long into Solanke. You need Gallagher, you need Sarr in there to kind of feed off of those scraps, win the knockdowns, and then quickly get the ball to Simmons and play. Get Sousa running up the pitch, get Spent running up the pitch on the other side. So I think that could almost suit Tottenham a little bit. But I think Simmons here against Trippier is a good matchup because he's tricky. He'll want to kind of cut in. Trippier almost looks like he's on ice skates from a defensive point of view at the moment. He's got a natural overlapping kind of fullback option. You've got Sousa getting around the outside. You've got box crashes. You've got Gallagher. You've got Sarr. I think Simmons and Sousa could be actually quite key in this game from what we've seen of Sousa so far. Also, the more the game goes on, I think if you can get Simmons maybe into central area if you're chasing the game. Again, like I said, Newcastle have not been great kind of holding on to leads so far this season. If Gallagher was to come off, maybe for example, Sarr kind of comes into here. Simmons from the 10 is able to go out and get out onto this left-hand side. Again, I think he's a good option to kind of go at Trippier, to want to come inside, get shots off with a guy going around him. Trippier looks vulnerable defensively at the moment, and I think that could be a matchup later on in the game that could really suit Tottenham. And also, I think it's good to keep options on the bench with the lack of kind of availability that we've got generally in the squad at the moment. And Newcastle, they're tired, they're fatigued. The style of play isn't necessarily sustainable when they're playing 2 games a week because they rely so much on their physicality, so much on their pressing. And yes, Spurs would have had to do so much hard work, obviously, on Saturday, but we did sit kind of in a low block for the majority of the game to try and obviously soak up pressure and then try and hit United on the break and go for it in the last 15 minutes in the substitutions and kind of roll the dice that way. So maybe there was an element of energy conserved despite the fact that we had to work hard. But if we can be intense in this game, we can cause them problems because I think Newcastle are almost running a little bit on empty at the moment. They've got injuries. Like I said, they do sort of look clueless if a team kind of sits back. And I think, look, as much as, like I said, we want to see Tottenham play more front-foot attacking football and take the game to the opposition. I totally get that. That's what I want from a Tottenham team. But at the moment, needs must. We do need to start thinking about the opposition and how we can really kind of hurt them rather than just going and playing our game. Because if we do go look to press them, I don't really trust our press at the moment. I feel like it's kind of disjointed, as it was evidence in the Man City game. Newcastle have got the quality on the ball to be able to play through the lines and get runners running at your back line, isolating fullbacks out wide, coming inside, getting shots off. That's issues that we've kind of had all season. If you can get Gallagher and Sarr in midfield and get them further up, maybe you can press more effectively, potentially. So if we are going to do that, I'd much rather we play a 4 at the back rather than a 3, and it doesn't leave us so open in midfield. We can kind of pack that out a little bit more and get more bodies in there with that protection of Paulinho, who can maybe drop back in at times if you're worried about that, to support Dragusin and Van de Ven. I think Van de Ven, having him in this game back fit, is massive because of the threat of Elanga and Barnes on the break. Wisser, if he does start running the channels. If it's Voltemada, then not so much. But again, they're going to look to spin you and turn you the other way if Voltemada drops deep, as well, to get Elanga and to get Barnes in. Again, Voltemada does offer them that kind of backboard when they're looking to play out from the back, as someone that can kind of link the play and allow their wingers to turn quickly and run into the space. So having Van de Ven able to kind of mop up is obviously big, but it's one that we've got to get the balance right. Again, I don't want us just to sit back. We've got to go for it. We've got to win, but also teams sitting back against Newcastle with how they've nullified them, and we need to get points on the board in this game. If you can go a little bit more direct and kind of go over the top of that press, because Newcastle are still going to look to do it. They don't really change their style necessarily that much, and I think that's been one of Newcastle fans' big bugbears with Eddie Howe, that this style of play isn't sustainable. We don't really feel like we have a plan B. And I even think in the to be fair, I think in the Carabao Cup game against Newcastle, for example, and at points in the Premier League game, we were able to play through their press. But also, we don't have Romero in this game, who is going to inhibit us from doing that a little bit as well. Paulinho obviously played at centre-half in the Carabao Cup game, to be fair, and played forward well, played through the lines. And if you can get Simmons in, kind of dropping a little bit deeper to help make that happen, then that it could potentially work. But I wouldn't be surprised to see Spurs look to employ a more direct approach. I do worry about Dragusin's distribution, both short distribution and long distribution. But if you can get Solanke up there winning duels against Chow and Botman, Chow's not looked himself necessarily recently. I don't think Trippier's doing him many favours from that right-hand side. So again, if you can win the knockdown and you've got players like Gallagher and players like Sarr who can get in there, win those second balls, and get the ball through to Sousa, who's going to fly up, Spence, who is going to fly up on the other side, Odebear as well, on that right-hand side to isolate Hall 1v1, and Spence can kind of go around him. I think that's probably your best bet. And then maybe bring Tell on later in the game to go at Trippier, who's tired, because they haven't really got anybody to come on and replace him, to be honest. I think, yeah, it's going to be a really, really interesting one, to be honest, in terms of what we do. But I think that's maybe the direct route is potentially the way to go. But we've got to try and get in behind them. We've got to make sure that we get players closer to Solanke. That's not what we were doing in the first half against Man City, right? We were lumping the ball up long, but when Solanke or Mawani would go for the knockdown, it would come back. There was no one in there to win the second balls. That's why you can still be aggressive, even if you are playing more direct football, but you've got to make sure that Sarr and Gallagher have the licence to get up there, get around Solanke, win the second balls, and then quickly play to Simmons or play to Odebear, and then they can go at Trippier and go at Hawks. I think Newcastle are vulnerable at the back, and their midfield hasn't been as good as we know that it has been. Like I said, there is issues off the ball with this Newcastle team. They kind of look easier to play through a little bit at the moment. If they decide to sit back in a lower block at times and try and soak up pressure and hit us on the break and allow us onto them more, I think Simmons can kind of come into the game. We saw Aston Villa score a goal against them recently, where Buendia, nice little link up, playing a shot from outside the box. Can we be braver to get shots off from outside the box with Gallagher, with Simmons, and test Nick Pope, who has looked a little bit shaky recently? This is a massive, massive game for Tottenham, and a massive, massive opportunity against an out-of-form team, but we've said this too many times. And tomorrow has got to be the night where we put it right and we win this absolutely must-win game. Because if we win this game, we keep that gap at 6 points. If Man United are then able to go and beat West Ham or even draw against them, that's 7 points or potentially 9 points. And then you're looking at a situation where Spurs might only have to win a couple more games in the Premier League this season to keep their heads above water. And win a draw a couple more as well out of the remaining 13, 14 games or whatever it is. This Newcastle team is not as good as they were. I think there is a collectiveness and a togetherness a little bit within the group at the moment. They did well in that second half against Man United in the circumstances. Can they come out of that? Can they take a bit of courage from the Man City game as well? Because again, if Newcastle do go 1-0 up, these guys can't hold on to leads. They can't do it. There should be a confidence that we can get back in this game. And again, I just need to see a better first half performance. I need to see it all connected a little bit more together. If we are going to take the direct route like we did against Manchester City, then you need to get second balls. You need to get dual winners in and around Solanke for those second balls to help mop things up and then quickly make things happen off the back of that. Not just lumping it up to them and hoping for the best. We've then got to try and turn Newcastle and get in behind them as well, because they are leaving space. They are leaving space. They are. And again, if we kind of go back to this very quickly, Wirtz, kind of his little nimbleness, his in tight areas to be able to put Trippier on ice skates, put him on his arse and make things happen for Ekitike to score. Again, they're leaving space in behind. Look at Trippier caught out of position there. Can Chow get out quicker? Let's do things quicker. Let's play the ball over the top quicker when Newcastle look to play up from goal kicks. Look at this, the space that Wirtz can get out to Salah. Can Xavi Simons be doing this, picking up those pockets? Spurs hurting Newcastle in transition. Simons getting his first Premier League goal for a while. Can we do that? I think Simons is going to be key in this game. I think Sousa could be key in this game. I think Sarr and Gallagher are going to be key in this game. Also to try and stop Tonali and Bruno Guimaraes from playing. You know, if we're going to press, let's get onto them with Sarr and Gallagher. Allow Paulinho to kind of sit back and mop things up that little bit more, and allow an extra a bit of safety blanket and protection for the back four, and he can help break things up in transition as well. So if we're going to press, let's be careful. Let's do it right. Let's not leave ourselves so exposed in midfield like we did against Man City. Let's be more coordinated about it. If we're going to go direct, let's get men closer to Solanke to help win those second balls and turn them over and make something of it. Newcastle don't like it when teams go direct. They're still going to press you. They're going to leave that space. They don't really change the way that they play, and teams have stopped playing out from the back of them against them as much because of that. So let's utilise all of the things that we've learned about Newcastle's struggle this season and apply it to this game that we can win. We can win this. We can. Make sure to subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Give me a score prediction in the comments. Make sure to like it for me. Let's do this. Come on, Tottenham.